In today's show, the Blazers have a bad record and a darn near full roster heading into next season. So, how many of these dudes are coming back? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking the future, but more like the immediate future. I mentioned in passing on a show earlier this week that I hope the Blazers roster looks a little bit different, and it prompted one of my friends who listens to the program to say, how different? I want to talk about how different that I kind of think it should look or might look and can look, and sort of all the details that go into that. And then we'll do what we do on Fridays. We'll take our Tankathon spin, a spin of the wheel for our good friends at Tankathon. Let's start with talking about, the Blazers aren't good, right? They're 19-54, but their roster is pretty full for next season. They've got 11 guaranteed contracts for next year. They've got 3 non-guaranteed contracts, 2 of which are I would say, relatively likely to be picked up, so with some organizational investment in them. Have 2 first-round picks. They've got 2 second-round picks. There's no way in hell they bring in 4 rookies, but they only have 1 player walking in free agency. That's Moses Brown. It'd be very funny if Moses Brown came back, but I can't imagine that he does. So, what I want to lay out here in the first segment is sort of the roster situation heading into next season, and then we'll get into a little bit of how many of these folks do I think are going to be back? How many of these dudes do I think are going to be back on the roster when we get going in earnest in the fall for year 4 of this experiment? This experiment being this sort of Chauncey Billups, Joe Cronin, moving forward in a rebuild that wasn't a rebuild and then was a rebuild and now is they're rebuilding. So here's the roster situation. Let's start there as we wrap up year 3. Blazers are 4-21 in their last 25 games. So we wrap up year 3 of the rebuild. Got 4 guards under guaranteed contracts: Anfernee Simons, Malcolm Brogdon, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe. You got 4 forwards under contracts: Matisse Thybulle, Jeremy Grant, Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert. You could argue that Matisse Thybulle is kind of a 2. That's fine. You could argue that Ryan Rupert is kind of a wing amorphous position. It's not really about positions. Those guys aren't like primary ball handler types. Creators, wings, and swings, as Brad Stevens used to call those are your wings. Then you got 3 bigs. Ayton, that's DeAndre Ayton. Duop Reith recently signed a contract. Congrats to Duop. And Robert Williams III. That's Rob. Then you got your non-guaranteeds. Or technically Delano Benson's is like a non-guaranteed team option, so they can pick it up and it still remains fully non-guaranteed. But Delano Benson, Jabari Walker, and Tumani Kamara. That's your situation. That gets you to 14. You're going to have 2 first-round picks. You're going to have 2 second-round picks. At least you're going to move forward with those picks until you trade them. They have to trade some of them. Like, they can't select 4 rookies. Conceivably, they could take 2 first-rounders. Conceivably, they could take a first-rounder and a second-rounder of some combination. 3 seems like too many. 2 on this, they don't even have room for 2 as they currently stand. So something's got to give, right? Like, something's got to give. By choosing to not make a trade at the deadline, they made 1 trade. They got Delano Benson. He looks like an interesting part of the present and could potentially be part of the future, but the roster crunch might get him. I would remind you that, like, you don't have to go back too far in time, like last summer when it seems like, undrafted guy that had converted from a two-way to a guaranteed contract to an NBA deal under Joe Cronin, not fully non-guaranteed, but to an NBA deal under Joe Cronin, Trenton Watford. And Trenton was like, hey, it seemed like they had this sort of undrafted discovery. And while he was a weird player, it felt like, oh, this is a developmental part. They're going to be a young team. Why not move forward with this developmental part? And Joe Cronin outright waived him because he wasn't part of the plan. So surprises happen. And in investment, the players that you think they might be invested in happen, particularly players that are like, good but. And Watford is like, oh, he does some stuff, but like, is he like, he's like a 6'7" center. It is. There will be some surprises, obviously, in how the roster moves, and I think Joe has shown us that. Joe Cronin. We don't need to, I'm not gonna call him by his first name. I'm certainly not gonna. But Cronin has. It seems too familiar for a Friday show. You're welcome to Friday, even for a Friday show. Welcome to Friday, March 29th program. I appreciate you listening. But Cronin has shown us that that surprises are there. They can come around the corner. So don't be shocked. But they have to do something, because not only are they full up, right? 11 guaranteed, 3 other guys that would get you to 14. The full roster is 15. They're also right up against the salary cap. And according to our good friends at SpotRack, shout out to my guy Keith Smith, the Blazers are at $67 million in taxable salary, and the tax threshold is a shade over $171 million. So they basically couldn't even add a first-round pick and stay below the tax line as currently constructed. They got to do something. They probably have to clean up the backcourt situation. I think one of Anthony Simons or Malcolm Brogdon has to be moved. I'd say Malcolm Brogdon is significantly more likely to be moved, but there's certainly a case to be made for, because you'd probably get a better package, like significantly better package back for Anthony Simons on the trade markets, albeit not like this one that's going to wow you, but like you would get a better package for Ant at his age and skill set than Malcolm Brogdon at his age and health, that you trade Ant. I'm not making that case now. I've done a show about it, and certainly we'll revisit in the summertime, but you've probably got to move one of those guys. How many other dudes do you bring back? What do you do with the rest of the roster? What do you do with the draft picks? It's crowded. I think that's the real truth. By not making a trade at the trade deadline, they set themselves up. You had Delano Banton, but you set yourselves up where you have to do something. I was screaming on this podcast, and I maintain that I think they should have made a move. Obviously, the market dictates some of the moves you can make and all of that. But like I was screaming on this podcast, they have to trade Malcolm Brogdon at the trade deadline. When they didn't, now they actually have to make a move. They have to shake up this roster, because they're not going to be a tax team, and they're not going to. You can't run it back. You can't lose 60 games and run it back. For the least of the reasons why you can't run it back. Who on the team stands out as a future part that is undeniable? You've got some intriguing parts. You've got some veterans that could be some steadying presence, some solid parts. But who on this team can you say like undeniable? Scoot Henderson has been mostly bad this year. There's some flashes, but he's been mostly bad. Shaedon Sharpe remains a big unknown. A big unknown with interesting upside, but a massive unknown. We just do not know. You can hope, and I think hope is a valuable resource in these times. Hold on to it, but like we don't know. We don't know what he's going to be. I think every time it's pretty clearly not that. Malcolm Brogdon's he's a career solid role player, right? Like Jeremy Grant is like a starting NBA player, but not anything more than that. DeAndre Ayton is like a decent center. He's pretty good. He's been better lately, but I would say overall DeAndre Ayton's pretty good. But these aren't like foundational building blocks. Something's gotta give, because they have to make some moves. So, inspired by a question I got from a listener probably a year ago, I want to talk about how many folks I think will be back on the team next season. How many of these dudes are we actually going to see in the fall? Because the roster situation is such that they have to do something. Let's put a number on it and do some guessing in the second segment. First, I want to tell you about 3 words: passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts to choose from. Your ride or die will always have what it needs, and you'll always find what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, once you find what you're looking for, it's guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, baby, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right. So this we kind of laid out the scene, right? Blazers have a crowded roster, 11 guaranteed contracts, 3 non-guaranteed contracts. We'll start there in a moment. But what I want to talk about is, like, I think it is imperative that the roster looks different. But what I want to talk about here is how different. Let's roll through the non-guaranteed guys first. I think Banton is good enough to deserve strong consideration. He's really interesting, right? He's big and lanky, and he gets to the rim, and he shot really well in a Blazers uniform. And he has the off the dribble rim pressure game that this team needs, like a driving attack, a guy who can go get his own bucket in a way that a lot of their other wings and a lot of their other players can't. He offers optionality either to play, as I mentioned in the past. I feel like that's his best skill. He offers that optionality of being able to play big in the backcourt or play small, but have another ball handler play smaller. He's like slender, but he's not short at the wing. But like, he offers those options. I don't think he's good enough to have an absolute lock spot, but he's intriguing. Jabari Walker is a really interesting one. He's a really interesting one, right? Because I think he has tools with the rebounding and the toughness to be an NBA player. But if you're making tough decisions, a non-guaranteed second-round pick who has really struggled to make an offensive impact in his first 2 seasons is a guy that might get got. I don't think they will. If I had to guess, Jabari Walker will be back on the team. But I think, like, if you're talking like the Trendon Watford surprise decisions, I bet Jabari could be that. I would pick against it, but certainly, like, keep the idea in mind. Damani Kamara would be bizarre if they cut him. He's like a legitimately good find. He's already like a high-level defender and has shown some offensive chops in the second half of the season. Like, he among the sort of like role player types is the one I feel most confident about, like, being a player. I'm more confident about him than Jabari Walker, than Delano Banton, certainly more than Chris Murray, and more than Duop Reith. Of like, Tumani could play on a good team. I mentioned the Malcolm and Ant stuff in that second segment. I think you got to trade one of them, and Ant is the one to do it. It would be just like a stupid use of assets to move off of trading Scoot or Shea. Obviously, they're available to, like, yes, you're allowed to trade them. Scoot Henderson could get Tyrese Halliburton for sure. I guess the trade worked out for both teams, but I think you'd rather have Tyrese Halliburton. Not that Scoot has shown to be that by any means, but like, if you draft someone 3rd overall, you're invested in them. This is not the time. Shaedon Sharpe, you draft a 19-year-old as a 7th overall pick. When you draft teenagers, you owe yourself the patience. Just having guys on rookie scale contracts is incredibly important. I think they're like off the table unless something wild happens. Matisse Thybulle, they should try to trade him. Like, he could help another team, and he's fine, and like, he's like an incredibly fun personality. As for selfish reasons, I really like Matisse Thybulle and have enjoyed the little bit I've interacted with him in the locker room. But they should try to trade him. They should try to trade Jeremy Grant. Like, they just should. They should try to trade Jeremy Grant. They should have tried to trade him at the trade deadline. I was on that in February. I'm on that in March. They should. They don't have to trade him, but they should pick up the phone and find out what the deal is for Matisse Thybulle. They should find out what the deal is for Jeremy Grant. Chris Murray, like, you took him in the first round. I don't think you move off him. I'm a little worried about the shot. Al-Farouq Murray is real, except, like, Al-Farouq Aminu had like more stuff on to his game, like a little more positive stuff to his game. I am worried about Chris Murray as an offensive player. All of the other little stuff he does is good. He's a great cutter. He's a competitive defender. You don't move off a first round pick that quickly unless you do. Like Murray is the type of player that it's like, if another team thinks that they can fix the shot and they see all the things you see, he's the exact type of sweetener you move in. You move into a deal to like make it happen, or if you just need to say, oh, you might end up in a situation where it's like Chris Murray or Jabari Walker because we're making a deal and we need to put someone in it. That might come up. Ryan Rupert, no reason, like you're not going to get a lot for him in the open market shopping, like as a trade chip. Maybe you can add him as an interesting sweetener, but like you draft a teenager in the second round. You owe yourself patience. The bigs are curious, Duop Reith is, I think he won't even be eligible to be traded basically until the season starts. So he's not going to be traded till the summertime. Rob Williams, they should shop. Like, obviously, they should shop Rob Williams. If they can get something for him, they should trade him. And DeAndre Ayton, it's like, I'd be hard-pressed to see them moving off of him, and I'd be hard-pressed to see another team wanting to acquire him, but I don't know. If $35 million salary slot, maybe somebody wants it. So that's, I feel strongly that Malcolm Brogdon and Matisse Thybulle and Jeremy Grant the Blazers should explore, and Rob Williams, the Blazers should explore avenues to trade those players. I'm not saying they have to be traded. I do think one of Anfernee Simons or Malcolm Brogdon has to be traded, just for like reasonableness of the roster. You need to have, even if you trade for other guards, you need to have players that fit better together and make more sense, and you need to balance the roster a little bit. And if you get, if your four best offensive players, or, four of your five, if you're four, like sort of, there's a real roster crunch at the guard spot. We don't need to relitigate it at the moment. I think you have to trade one of them. Matisse, Jeremy Grant, Rob Williams. So some combination of those four. You're talking about 11 guys on a guaranteed contract and 3 non-guarantees. How many will be back? My concern is 10. That's my concern. I'm hoping, because I think that they owe it to themselves to be aggressive in reshaping the roster. When you are 19-54, holding on to interesting role player veterans because they're interesting and somewhat useful doesn't make any sense. You're also allowed to trade veterans for veterans. So if you're worried that every player on the roster is like you have to have some players over 28, you're allowed to acquire 30-year-olds. It's totally within the realm. But maybe they make a little more sense. Do people think Malcolm Brogdon, when he's sitting on the bench and sweats and has been actively engaged in coaching the team, has been like worse than when he plays? I would argue they might be more valuable, because at least if the young guys were all available, at least they'd just be getting them the minutes at this time of year. I think that is maybe a hot take. Because Malcolm Brogdon was pretty good when he was on the court. But I think it just for mentorship purposes, you're allowed to trade for vets. My concern is that the Blazers look at this team and they say, we like the upside of Scoot Henderson. We like the upside of Shaedon Sharpe. Those dudes are locks. We like the upside of Chris Murray and Ryan Rupert. We like the upside we like what we found in Duop Reith, and we really believe that he's a valuable, he's an overqualified third string center, and he's a good backup. We like Toumani Camara. We like Jabari Walker. We like Delano Banton. We're going to bring all these dudes back. We're going to run it back on a team that won 60 games. And I don't think the Blazers are trying to be good next year, to be clear. Like, I don't buy it when they say they want to be good. I just don't buy it. We'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think that's, I don't believe it. I think they're going to be bad again, right? So my concern is that they bring back 10 guys. My concern is that they say, we like this core. We like what the production that Jeremy Grant brings. We like what he does, and we want him on the roster again next season. We value Matisse Thybulle's defense. Very reasonable to value that, but not in this context of this team. What they should be prioritizing is getting assets for the future and getting players that can taking swings at upside players or draft assets that can get you upside players, or clearing some money so they can take on bad contracts into the future and acquire assets in that manner. They're just a team that needs to take as many swings as possible. You were hoping this year you'd find out what Shaden Sharp would be and what Scoot Henderson would be, and you'd be like, oh, they're going to be pretty good, and then you could build into the future. They don't know anything about this team, and what they do know about Scoot Henderson is that he's looked bad as a rookie. This team needs to be bad, probably. And that stinks as someone who podcasts about them every day. I want them to win. I want them to be playing meaningful, like for selfish personal reasons. I want them to be a 58-win team who plays important games into the second round of the NBA playoffs. You know how easy this podcast would be if they did that? Meaningful games until the end of May? Instead, it's not that. And there's, my concern is that they run it back because, not because they are trying to be good, but because I wouldn't be upset. Let me rephrase. I wouldn't be upset if the Blazers disappointed if the Blazers lose another 60 games next season. I would be upset if this Blazer team loses 60 games next season. Take some swings, make some moves, acquire some draft picks along the way, acquire some veterans to help you kind of make sure that you're in a decent ecosystem along the way, and take your lumps. You're going to add some, probably, 1+ rookies with your picks. I really talk about a little in the Tankathon segment that they have a lot. They're a little overextended in the 2024 draft, so they obviously can't take 4. Like I said, 1+. My worry is that they keep 10 of these guys. My guess, I'm going to put a number on it right now, of the 11 guaranteeds and 3 non-guaranteeds, I'm going to say, this is hopeful. This is a wishful thought, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say 6. 6. Just a little more than half are on the team. I think they make big moves this summer. I may be wishful thinking. I watched Joe Cronin do nothing at the trade deadline, and now I'm saying he's really going to do it this summer. But hopefully only 6 of these players return, because knowing when to get off guys that aren't going to be part of the future is the challenge of NBA GMing. Knowing when to cut bait, knowing when to say, you know what, we thought it was going to work and it didn't. See ya. And knowing when to turn veterans into better things that fit better with the plan is a challenge of being an NBA GM. My worry is that 10 of these gentlemen are back. My very hopeful, it's not even a guess, my hope is 6 or fewer, because I want to see them make big structural changes. Not that I'm like, get Jabari Walker out of here, but get the vets out of here. Get Matisse Thybulle and Jeremy Grant and Rob Williams out of here, even if it's for new vets. Like, Make my friend Eric Griffith, who's has written for Willamette Week and Blazers Edge in the past, says that at every sort of transaction cycle, the trade deadline and the summer and the draft, your team needs to improve. Either it's asset based to get better, or it's talent on the roster. I want the Blazers to do that. I want them to this summer to take that, to heed the advice of Eric G. and get better at the transaction cycle. Okay, in the third segment, we're going to take a spin on the old Tankathon, which we do each and every Friday right here on this very program. Join me there. First, let's talk about Nissan's new lineup of SUVs that you're going to love. They got capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Because if you're the driver who likes to push things a little bit further, or you're ever wondering what adventure could be around the next corner, well, the 2024 lineup of SUVs from Nissan, they're calling your name. Like the 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives and perfect for great escapes. It's got class exclusive Google built into your always updating assistant that you can call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of getting into a car and having to plug in your phone instead, or even connect your phone. Instead, you got Google Assistant, Google Maps, and the Google Play Store built right into a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. This is the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But say you want to go bigger, like seriously big. What about the 2024 Nissan Armada that's going to change what you expect from a full-size SUV? Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger, explore further in the 2024 Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Today's show is also brought to you by the good folks over at Fire TV. Amazon's got Fire TV. It's your destination for sports and for live games and for highlights and for in-depth analysis. Offers amazing viewing experiences for smart TVs, or if you got a dumb TV, they got a Fire Stick that you can plug right into that existing television, and it's going to provide you access to millions and millions of television episodes, as well as free live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball that's happening right now, or the NCAA tournament, which is happening right now, you're going to want to get your Fire TV. Plus, they recently created the Fire TV channel to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us at Locked On. They got the Locked On Sports Today channel just right there for you on your Fire TV, or if you got a Fire Stick, plug it in and check out that Locked On Sports Today channel. You're gonna get a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't know you needed, and you're gonna get all the things you already love. So check out the Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. How many guys Blazers going to keep? I don't know. Probably a lot. They're probably going to run it back. But before they make those decisions, the way the NBA's off-season cycle works, they'll probably make some trades around draft day. Knock on wood. But in any case, they're going to have to go through the NBA draft before they get to they're probably not going to be a player in free agency. Like they don't have cap space. You know, they could spend mid-level money, but why would they spend mid-level money to their avenue to get better is through the draft and through trades. And you got to and trades will happen maybe during that free agency period in July, but it'll happen in and around the draft. And part of navigating the draft is kind of determining what the value of your pick is. But you got to get through the lottery to do so. The Blazers are losing, and they're losing with great gusto, and you should be so proud of your favorite basketball team for just doing what they do each March and April, and that's lose games on purpose. Bless their little hearts. But to do that, the Blazers are chasing down the Charlotte Hornets to end up with the fourth best lottery odds. They also are owed a draft pick from the Golden State Warriors. So what we do on Fridays is we go over to Tankathon.com and we take a spin on their simulated lottery to see where the Blazers land, and then we talk about what we might do if we had that options that if those options were available to the Blazers the way they were. We do this live on the show, so I don't have this prepped. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see me spin it live. Let's find out what our options are. Find out where the lottery lands. Let's get that number one pick on a Friday. Some good vibes. And the spin comes up. That's right. We did it, America. The Blazers, and all of North America, and shout out to Australia and also my listeners all over the globe. We truly did it. The Blazers get the number one pick. Can you believe it? I think with the number one pick, they should take Alexander Sarr. I know there's some Ricochet love. I've called him French Richard Lewis. You could draft French Richard Lewis if you want, number one overall. I like his skill set as I think he's going to be a good NBA player. As a number one overall pick, I would shoot for that upside, right? And a 19-year-old like Sarr, who I think the concern about him is that he's maybe a power forward in the NBA because he's not a great rebounder, and he's not maybe doesn't have the physicality to match up against like the Nikola Jokic's of the world. If he's a 4, he might be a challenging fit, although maybe his pick and pop skills allow him to play right next to DeAndre Ayton, and you can play this giant front line and into magic, and it works and all of those things. But the upside as a switchy, gigantic defender, the myth about small ball in the league is that no one's ever wanted to be small. They've wanted to be skilled. That was the secret to the Warriors' mojo, was that they were skilled and everyone was 6'7", and they had had one of the best players of the generation who just happened to be a little bit smaller, and they didn't play a traditional center because they didn't need to because of the skill set, because of the passing and the dribbling, right? Sarr has that size and the switchability maybe on defense to be special, right? Is he going to be like an elite, I think the concern about this draft is that it doesn't have true top end talent. But is Sarr like intriguing, maybe like a good to very good player in the NBA for a long time? Yeah, he's the physical tools are there. He's 7'1", 220. He moves pretty well laterally. He can play defense, a bunch of different defensive schemes. He's got the idea of some shooting touch. He's been productive in a small minute role playing in the NBL. If the Blazers get the number one pick, I am hammering the Sarr button. In the same simulation, the Warriors stayed at 13. 13 when you've already taken a big makes it a little more confusing. I would take an upside swing with Salon, but I think the real truth is if you get the number one pick, it makes it a lot easier to try to trade out of 13. It makes it a lot easier. I don't think they can. They could take 2 firsts, right? They can't take a third rookie if they take 2 firsts, probably, just because you have the sort of Rupert, Chris Murray projects on the team. It's it makes it a little more challenging. Obviously, if they make some major trades around the draft and they trade Malcolm Brogdon and they trade Jeremy Grant, they trade Matisse Thybulle and they trade Rob Williams and say they trade Rob Williams and the 13th pick and they end up with a future second round or future first round pick in 2025 and another player who plays then you can start to make some other decisions. But for me, if you get one, it makes it so much easier to shop the other picks. It makes it so much easier because you're okay, we're going to get exactly who we want. We're going to be confident in it. We're going to get Sarr and we're going to make it happen. I'm sure the Blazers have never drafted a big man with a high draft pick and it's come back to bite them, right? I'm not going to look that up. I'm just certain that's never happened. Why am I putting that juju out into the air on a Friday? Shame on me. Here's what I'll say. Tonight, tough night for a boy, tough night for his Tar Heels. Need a little good vibes. Tankathon spin, number one overall pick. That's good vibes. How about this? Let's do 5 more of these next week. That's what we do. Wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.